This week at the movies, when Sean Diddy Combs wants a British rock star to get to L.A. stat, who's the man to bring him in?
Jonah Hill, that's who, in Get Him to the Greek.
Can you handle it?
Definitely.
It's love.
Also coming up this week...
Marmaduke, no!
Oops.
The funny papers to the funny screen will let you know if Marmaduke is, in fact, funny.
What was that?
A mistake.
It's just a little genetic experiment. What's the worst that can happen? We'll tell you when we review Splice.
Plus, one of the great wild men of American movies died last week. We pay tribute to Dennis Hopper.
Next month is the 10-year anniversary of Aldous Snow live at the Greek Theater. We could put on an anniversary concert. He's rock music personified. I'm a motorist.
They don't make wild, self-destructive rock stars like they used to, with one exception, Russell Brand. I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
And I'm Michael Phillips for the Chicago Tribune.
Who could forget Forgetting Sarah Marshall? Now, that was a bit of a mouthful, but if you do remember that movie, which I enjoyed quite a bit, you may recall that it was almost stolen by Russell Brand as Aldous Snow, the dissolute British rocker who stole Sarah Marshall from the hero. Well, in Get Him to the Greek, Aldous Snow is back, dissoluter than ever, and the job of straightening him out and getting him to the big show on time at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles falls to Aaron Green, a record company flunky played by the always anxious Jonah Hill.
You know, every artist just has one album that's just not good, and that's it. Honestly, I listen to that and I'm just like, what was he thinking?
In future, if someone asks you to give them a critique of their work, don't rip out their gizzards and hold it in front of their face. What are you?
Not really much of a story here. Basically the tale of a decent guy led astray by a wildly self-destructive celebrity and then rediscovering his basic decency. Aldous, for all his drug use and debauchery, is not such a bad guy either.
No! Aaron, you're being strange.
No!
Aaron, don't be selfish, I'm sleeping.
No! You've kept me up for 3 days, you got me all Jeffrey'd up, and you stabbed me in the arm with an adrenaline needle. You're staying up and talking to me.
I gave you that adrenaline for your own good. Your life was in jeopardy. I'm like a guardian angel.
Brand is really the key, though Elizabeth Moss and Colm Meaney do some handy supporting work, as does Sean Diddy Combs as Aaron's boss.
15,000 units! You made me vouch for Chocolate Daddy 15,000 units! I got 6 kids! You know how much money that is to put them through school? You know how many Air Jordan 6 black kids wear?
Brand's Aldous is a mess, of course, but he's also smart and talented and a lot of fun to be around. And it's Brand's unpredictable energy that helps this movie through some rough patches and slow stretches and earns it a qualified but sincere see it.
Oh, yeah, I say see it. I'm less qualified than you are, I think.
Hey, you were laughing your head off sitting right next to me at the screening.
Yeah. No, I think like all the films that have the Judd Apatow producing imprint, we're talking about, you know, Knocked Up,
Right.
40-Year-Old Virgin, Superbad. This is another story of Peter Pans, boy men who are sort of slouching toward adulthood reluctantly, and that gets to be a little monotonous in the wrong hands. But I think this writer-director, Nicholas Stoller, who did Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I think he's got real generosity toward these characters. As you mentioned, it's extremely raunchy and at its best, extremely funny.
Well, but what I liked about it, too, is just what you say, is that you have this character, Aldous Snow, who could be like a sketch comedy caricature, just like one note played again and again and again and again.
Yeah, 10 minutes and you're out.
Dumb guy taking drugs, you know, singing songs, taking drugs, falling down. But he's so strange, and he has actually real feelings, too. He has some disarmingly kind of sensitive and vulnerable moments in this movie.
Well, right.
And he plays very well off of Jonah Hill's character.
I think audiences will be surprised at how seriously, at moments anyway, you're meant to take this father-son relationship between the Aldous Snow character and his father, played by Colm Meaney. And, you know, the movie tries a few things that it doesn't pull them all off, but I think one of the things that really made it for me, Tony, is Jonah Hill has learned how to relax on screen in a way that I've never seen him before.
One thing that frustrated me, that frustrates me more and more with each, you know, sort of Apatow-produced movie is the absence of really good comic possibilities for women. So, you know, Elizabeth Moss, who's so terrific on Mad Men, is in this movie playing the uptight doctor girlfriend of Jonah Hill.
Right.
And you just wish that she or some other actress could be given a chance to be as funny and crazy and raunchy as the guys are allowed to be.
Yeah, they're sidelined. They're not humiliated like they are on The Hangover. But anyway, next movie. The single-panel comic known as Marmaduke has been going strong since 1954. It's predicated on a single comic idea. Wow, that is one big dog. Now, for a feature-length film, that's a start, I guess. And the voice of the movie Marmaduke, Owen Wilson, certainly had good luck with his last dog movie, Marley and Me. But unlike that film, this one's a talking dog movie, and this is a dog who basically never shuts up.
There's nothing good about getting a bath. Except for...
This! Go on, Phil!
Not again.
Marmaduke! Let's go! Woo! Marmaduke!
I'd like to give Phil a little exercise, too. He's cooped up in the office all day. Come on, Phil.
It starts out with Marmaduke's Kansas family relocating to Orange County, California. The family's cat is voiced by George Lopez, and there, in the land of heinous Southern California stereotypes, the uneasy changes endured by the humans are echoed at the dog park, which is ruled with an iron paw by a bully dog voiced by Kiefer Sutherland. Here, eager to impress his often hostile new crowd, Marmaduke freshens up.
Is my breath really that bad?
A tube of toothpaste is a good start. You're gonna need more than that. Ay, dude, watch it. Just gave myself a tongue bath.
Sorry.
At one point, the cat refers to Marmaduke as 200 pounds of drama. Well, it's certainly 200 pounds of something, this movie. I would have preferred 1 pound of comedy plus an ounce of charm, and to the designations see it, rent it, or skip it at the movies, hereby adds a fourth one, crate it. I don't like this film.
No, I could think of some other designations too, but as you said a few minutes ago, that is one big dog, and this movie is one big dog. I don't know even
why.
Where
why is it so bad?
It's because it's got two stories going on, which are so banal and so hackneyed and so predictable. One is about the dog who's trying to fit in, you know, who meets some misfit friends, some mutts, but then tries to get in with the purebreds at the dog park.
Right.
You know, betrays his friends, has to learn lessons about being who he really is.
And
meanwhile,
okay,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it's all peril and humiliation,
Yes.
and you know the same old screenwriter tricks we've seen. I don't know, in the second Beethoven movie and the third whatever.
And,
you know?
and meanwhile, you have the human family where the dad has to learn the lesson not to work so hard and to spend more time with his family and to appreciate his dog more. And just also just these animated mouths, and when they do the full CGI and the dogs start dancing, it's grotesque.
I had a Scooby-Doo nightmare flashback there. Yeah,
Yes, a Scooby-Doo nightmare for sure.
Yes.
But there are some good dog movies out there in the world, and on a special web exclusive, we're going to be talking about some of our favorites. But coming up next, is it a Frankenstein monster for our times? Check out the creature in the new sci-fi thriller Splice.
And later, Colin Farrell is a fisherman who doesn't want to throw back his catch in Ondine.
It's our secret. It's coming out.
What? Can't do that. It's not due for months.
Well, tell that to the fetus.
You feel it?
Can't. Slippery.
What is it?
Our next movie is Splice, a sci-fi horror thriller that I must say took me by surprise. Not because of out-of-left-field plot twists or terrifying jolts, but because it went against some of my expectations of a creepy, crawly, scary monster movie. There is a monster, but she, her name is Dren, turns out to be a complicated creature, as much a victim as a source of terror.
Nobody can see what we made.
Once they see Ginger and Fred, don't you think the world's gonna want to know what's next? Do you think they could really look at this face and see anything less than a miracle?
Like old Dr. Frankenstein's monster, Dren is the product of a scientific ambition run amok. In this case, Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley are the mad scientists, though they seem more like hip grad students than diabolical Prometheuses. They're happily patching together the DNA of different species and wondering whether to have a kid of their own when along comes Dren.
You know I love you, don't you? You're a part of me. And I'm a part of you.
Splice, directed by Vincenzo Natali, has the requisite spooky atmosphere and pseudo-scientific mumbo-jumbo, what you'd expect in a movie like this, but it's also witty, aware of its own craziness, and disarmingly insightful about the psychology of its characters. I have a feeling this will end up being a little too weird to attract masses of horror movie fans, but I say it's worth seeing.
I say it's worth seeing too, and I do have the same question about whether or not an audience is going to A, find it, or B, embrace it, because of some of the things we can only allude to because of this.
There are some rather surprising turns that it does take,
there's a psychosexual current that runs through this in various directions that is going to be difficult for a lot of audiences. But
it makes it really interesting.
Interesting, and I think what you have here is you have, I'd say, a very astutely judged R-rated horror picture. It's not heavy on the gore.
No,
It's
very
actually
low body count,
and I think you have Brody and Sarah Polley in the leads playing characters that aren't even really begging for our sympathy. They're not they're not conventional rooting interest characters. They're kind of driven, half-nut scientists, and I think that gives the movie kind of an unpredictability.
Well, right, and they have this relationship with their creation, who's the result of this experiment. They're trying to do these genetic modifications to create new species that will produce drugs and therapies for this pharmaceutical corporation that they work for. And they develop this very complex, ambivalent relationship with her and with each other, and there's this fascinating triangle that takes place. This is not about like a monster going around trying to eat everyone,
right.
but about the sort of the psychodynamics of the relationship between the scientists and their creation.
And the whole thing plays out like kind of a compressed version of every fear, raising an infant fear the parents have, and it's I'd say the movie covers everything not covered in the book, what to expect when you're expecting. So.
Yes, it's good, and in that sense it may be a cautionary tale. Coming up next, an enchanted lady from the sea, an ultra-religious drug dealer, and a whimsical satire on the world arms trade. We look at some of the movies now playing in theaters.
Next week, the 80s are back with A Vengeance. Bradley Cooper and Liam Neeson star in the A-Team.
Give my team an hour. We're unbeatable.
Plus, Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith in a reboot of The Karate Kid. Next week at the movies.
So, what's the story?
She sings to the fishes and he catches them. You bring me luck.
That would be Selk.
How long are you staying?
Depends on you.
It depends on me. You can stay forever.
Time to bring you up to speed on a few movies that may be flying under your radar that are now playing in theaters. The first up is Ondine, starring Colin Farrell.
Or Swimming Under Your Sonar or something. So this is from the director, a wonderful director,
Neil Jordan,
at his best. Neil Jordan, who's done everything from Mona Lisa to The Crying Game to The Butcher Boy, a fantastic film. This is familiar mythology, right? We have a fisherman played by Farrell who finds in his net something that may be a sea creature, may simply be an undocumented alien of some kind, and
is a beautiful woman.
Yes, beautiful woman, and the movie asks one question. You know, is she magical or is she human? And I have to say, all the great work Jordan has done with movies that are more realistically grounded, like Mona Lisa and The Crying Game, which sort of feel like fairy tales.
Yeah.
Here you're dealing in, flat-out fairy tale category, and it sort of falls flat.
I thought it did, and I didn't think there was quite enough interest in that question, and not enough. I mean, there's some interesting secondary characters, but you didn't get, I thought, a full enough sense of this world and of the dramatic state. So it was disappointing.
County Cork looks great on camera, but that's about
as always. Yes, so skip it. Yeah.
Agreed, skip it. Also in theaters, Holy Rollers with Jesse Eisenberg.
Long expenses trip to Europe, see the world. But the most important thing to remember, do not open your bag for anybody because of the medicine.
Relax, mind your business,
and act Jewish.
Michael, I know you're a huge Jesse Eisenberg fan, and this is he's wonderful, and this is based on a true story about a Hasidic Jew in Williamsburg who got caught up in this international drug smuggling ring, bringing ecstasy from Amsterdam to New York, and recruiting other people from that religious community to bring it along. It's a really, this is a small kind of indie-ish movie. It's very local, very character-driven, but I thought it depicted this world, which is unknown to most people, even who live in Brooklyn, with great sensitivity intact. And also, Eisenberg showed this character's dilemma in, I thought, a really smart way.
He's an actor. I'm always defending the people who say, oh, he always plays the same role. I think he's a much more astute and detailed actor than some people give him credit for. And I think what you have here is a movie that does not over-dramatize any of its sort of crime situations or the tension. In fact, at times it barely dramatizes them at all, but I think it does. It held me, and I say see it.
I agree. And finally, from Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the director who brought us Amélie, it's a French movie called Micmacs.
J'ai retrouvé le fabricant de la balle que j'ai dans la tête.
Et réussite, avec dynamite.
J'aimerais bien faire d'une pierre deux coups. Est-ce qu'il y en a qui veulent bien m'aider, s'il vous plaît?
Tony, this is about a group of junkyard denizens who take on for revenge purposes, an international arms dealer or two.
Yes.
I can say nothing good about this except
Really?
it's the kind of thing I do not understand any comparisons people make to Buster Keaton or Jacques Tati or any good visual comedians of old. This to me is the most suffocating kind of whimsy. I
don't agree with you. I don't think this is. I think this is a rented because it's stretched too thin. But I do think that Genet has enough formal intelligence, and the star Danny Boone, I think, does have a sort of a Keaton-esque or Tati-esque presence. So I thought there were enough, kind of nicely executed, whimsical set pieces that
it's all Rube Goldberg jokes. So it's like, he set up this contraption which leads to this result, which is the most soulless, mechanical.
I think that's funny. I think when you see a radiator crashing through some guy's ceiling and landing on its desk, that's funny.
Always funny.
Coming up next, he scared the hell out of us in Blue Velvet, broke our hearts in Hoosiers, and revolutionized Hollywood with Easy Rider. A look back at some of our favorite moments from the screen career of Dennis Hopper.
Hey, man, everything that we ever dreamed of is in that teardrop gas tank. And you got a stranger over there pouring gasoline all over it, man. All he's got to do is turn and look over into it, man, and he can see that.
He won't know what it is, man. He won't know what it is. Don't worry, Billy.
Dennis Hopper died on May 29th at the age of 74. He was many things: a director, a photographer, a serious collector of pop art, but we remember him for the ferocious intensity of his screen portrayals, both before and after the movie that temporarily, at least, revolutionized Hollywood, Easy Rider. His best performances ranged widely and wildly across 6 decades. And it started back in, 1955?
With Rebel Without a Cause, in which he had a small part, and also in George Stevens' Giant, where he really, is a strong screen presence playing the troubled, angry son of the Rock Hudson oil man character.
Yes.
And he's really, you watch him in that movie and you think, who is this guy? He's so volatile and angry and unpredictable, such a raw nerve on the screen.
And you can see how he's, in a way, paying tribute to his idol, James Dean, in the same
in that movie with him.
in the same picture. But no, Hopper has a real, an unsettling quality, but it's hitting more than one note at a time. And later on, of course, he got typecast in Western after Western, playing one kind of threatening gunslinger after another. But then came Easy Rider.
Yes, and Easy Rider is a movie that I don't think, and you may agree, holds up all that well as a work of cinema, but is a very important artifact of its period, and is sort of one of the first bursts of energy of what would become the new Hollywood. It's a very kind of, it's a Shaggy Dog story, really, about these guys, going all across the country. But Hopper is actually, I think, the best performance in it, in a way, as well as having directed it, because he's the sort of, the Shaggy skeptic kind of at the margins of this thing. He doesn't necessarily buy into all of the hippie stuff that the movie's supposedly celebrating.
Yeah, in a way, very mixed influence, that picture, because it practically ruined Hollywood as they tried to recreate the success of this counterculture smash. And, you just can't recapture that same lightning twice. But, through the 70s, you had work that was highly variable, but then he kind of popped up in Apocalypse Now, and that was, among other things, that was the film that reminded you, scary, funny, a more nuanced actor than his reputation would suggest.
Well, and he shows up, as that kind of demented photojournalist who is Marlon Brando's press agent, and also jolts the picture, back to life at exactly the moment when it seems to be drifting out into the jungle. And then, of course, in the 80s was the big comeback.
1986. Amazing double bill. You had Blue Velvet, which just scared the hell out of me for many reasons. A fantastic film which does hold up, and that performance is indelible. And Hoosiers the same year. Heartwarming, vulnerable, his sole acting Oscar nomination too, and a good one.
And he kept going after that. He worked throughout the 90s and the last decade. He was a great villain in Speed, and kept being a villain after that. It's an extraordinary career, something like more than 100 movies in the guy's filmography.
Yep, no, it's a good career.
And quite a loss. Coming up next, can't decide what to see in theaters this weekend. Stay tuned for my 3 to see.
Oh, just gotta chill, though.
Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago, Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience, located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
Difficult relationships in my 3 to see this week. At number 3, The Special Relationship, an HBO film that examines the fraught political alliance of Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, played by Dennis Quaid and Michael Sheen, though it's Hope Davis's Hillary Clinton that really stands out in this movie. At number 2, Russell Brand and Jonah Hill as a rock star and his put-upon minder in Get Him to the Greek. And at number 1, Splice, in which Sarah Polley and Adrian Brody experience some of the usual stresses of parenthood, except that they're trying to raise a genetic experiment of uncertain species.
Yes, well, aren't we all? That's it for now. We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show. Now you can join the discussion by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to atthemoviestv.com to find out how.
And next week, we're getting in a hot tub time machine to go back to the 80s for reviews of The A-Team, starring Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper, and The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. Until then, we'll be at the movies.